So a while ago I made a birdhouse, but not just any birdhouse. Inside this custom birdhouse, I put a camera with a solar panel attached to power it. After a few days, a chickadee arrived, but it only stayed for a few seconds. It came several times that day just to check it out. It seemed to like it and stayed longer and longer every time. The next day, the chickadee arrived again. That day, I got a very pleasant surprise. This birdhouse was not meant for chickadees, and so when I saw that the eastern bluebird that I wanted had visited, I was very excited. It stayed for a very long time, checking it out with its mate on the outside. However, I couldn't see the other bird on the outside. It came twice that day and 2 times another day. As previously mentioned, it stayed for more than 30 seconds each time, and she looked around, sometimes looking up at the camera as her mate chirped directions from her from the outside. She found the camera several times but didn't seem bothered by it. The chickadee also came that day. Now I couldn't see the birds going in, and so I decided to remedy this problem by buying a second camera and adding it on the outside. A few seconds after putting it up after installation, the eastern bluebird came back, but did not go inside. The chickadee also came that day. Then 2 days after this, I saw the chickadee finally on the outside camera going in and coming out. I saw it go in, and it stayed for a longer amount as usual. Chickadees are usually flighty, and they do not seem to stay long at the birdhouse. A few days later, the chickadee appeared again, and to my delight, started bringing in moss as nesting material. It brought it in several pieces throughout the day, though it had a pretty nice layer on the bottom. It used its body and flapped its wings to move it and create a cup shape. Then, to my surprise, the next day the bluebird appeared, and it looked like it was checking out what the chick had done. The bluebird continued bringing in nesting material. This material was usually hay, and she shaped it with her breast, and flapping her wings, she also shaped the cup. Occasionally, there was a piece of nesting material that was too large, and she would have to find another way to bring it in, sometimes by breaking it. She continued bringing in more and more hay until she had a nice looking beginning of a nest. After she was done bringing in the nesting material, she would usually sit just outside the hole, thinking about where she was going to fly to next. She began bringing in more and more hay, and the beginnings of a nice nest gradually took shape. Occasionally, the male would poke his head in and see what his mate was doing. He usually did this and also chirped directions at her. The night ended by the chickadee paying a nighttime visit to see what the bluebirds had done to his nest. But is this the chickadee's nest, or is it the bluebird's nest? The next day, the chickadee arrived again, this time bringing its own nesting material, which happened to be moss. An hour or so after this, the eastern bluebird arrived and wondered what had done to mess up her nest. She began by reshaping it, and then promptly removed the piece of moss that the chickadee had put there. The chickadee came back only to find a dreadful surprise awaiting him. So what happened was that the eastern bluebird landed on the outside while the chickadee was in there and scared him into coming out. I also got a shot of the chickadee escaping from the outside, so let's take a look. Now that happened really fast, so let's break it down. So here the eastern bluebird is looking in and finds the chickadee inside. So she flaps, leans back, looks in again, and it's here that the chickadee escapes. The eastern bluebird then began repairing the nest, adding more material. The male also appeared on the outside, adding his helpful advice. The night ended by the bluebird adding a final bit of nesting material. Only time could tell who would win.